looks like everything's right with the stream, everything's all sorted and top notch, and hopefully you can actually hear me. And I need to mute me on there, otherwise you'll be getting a nice delay, which would be absolutely fantastic, I'm sure. Hello there guys, Feng here. Hey, welcome to my first ever live stream of Cataclysm DDA. What I actually planned to do was to make sort of a Newcomers guide to the game. Now, a lot has changed since Wales Cataclysm. A lot has changed. It's been nearly, what, 2 years? Something like that. I've been playing the game for just over 2 years, and I've been making content on it for about 1.5 years, maybe more than that. But the one thing I never really got round to doing was... oh god, we lost the stream. No, we're back, I think. Silly. Anyway, the one thing I never really got to do was to make a kind of a beginner's guide that show people like how to actually play the game. You know, all I've been doing is covering new content, new versions, and etc. So there's an awful lot to take in. There's going to be an awful lot to take in, and this being a stream, it's going to be a hell of a lot more casual. And the one thing I will point out though is that I do want to upload this to YouTube for those of you that have either missed out on the stream or just want to watch it whenever. So I'm going to upload it to YouTube, which means I can't put no music in the background. Otherwise, yeah, bad stuff will happen, which is a shame. So yeah, it's just going to be me talking about random shit, which you will enjoy so much. Okay, so let's actually discuss it. So the first thing you want to check is the options. As a new player, you want to check the options, right? Now most of this is going to be personal preference, so stuff like safe mode. What safe mode is, if you come across an enemy, the game will effectively pause and will tell you that you've seen an enemy, etc. Then there's other things like gameplay stuff like drop empty containers. So if you drink like a bottle of water, you can just choose to automatically drop it, etc. Stuff for just visuals, I like with circular distances. What that will do is, normally you'll see the world as a square, but with circular distances you'll see the range of light as a circle instead of square, which is really cool. Then you've also got auto pickup, auto notes if you go downstairs, and etc. It's always a good idea to also have auto save them, just in case the game crashes. I mean, it's still in an early stage. Well, it's not early stages now. It's been around for quite a while, but it still has a tendency to sometimes crash for no bloody reason. So it's usually a good idea to do that. The interface is purely preference as well. I like to keep it wider because it shows you a lot more stuff on the console panel, which is really cool. And other stuff as well. You know, you just need to twiggle around and see what you actually want. Now, of course, some people don't like playing with ASCII tiles. You know, they prefer playing with, you know, proper tile sets, and that's the great thing about Cataclysm DDA. I know there's been tile set support for quite some time now. So you've got Aldos and Dions. If you use the SDL version, I think you've got a few more tile sets available, but this is the console version, so it's just the basic version. So, but I always take it off. I always play with ASCII. I always find it better to play with ASCII tiles. I don't know why, especially when new content's added. Sometimes the tiles won't update, so you know, it's just that. Most of this is actually SDL stuff as well, which we're not using, so that's not really a problem. The big thing now is the debug and the world defaults. This is the major things that you want to consider. So the distance initial visibility. So when you first start a game, you'll have you actually be able to see for quite some distance. So you can see usually quite close to cities and etc. stuff like that. And now the actual default is 15, so that's quite big. But you can actually pump it all the way up to 20, which is fairly decent. But you can also make it hard on yourself and stick it all the way down to 3. So obviously, if you're a new player, you might want to stick this up to 20, so as you can see a bit more, which is nice. Initial points, maximum trait points. Now, initial points, this is only points you can do in the actual character creation screen. So 6 is the default. You can go all up to 1,000. Don't. It's basically cheating, but you've got that choice, and you can either have none at all and make it really hard for yourself. But defaults are pretty decent. You know, you start off with a fairly early character. If you have too many initial points, then you might already end up having a mid-game character, which can ruin the fun of actually trying to survive. So 6 is a decent amount. We've lost the stream again. For fuck's sake. Are we there? Hello? Yeah, okay, we're still there. That's weird. Why do you keep doing that? I hate streaming. I've only ever done it once. I did it with Rift, and that went smoothly. For some reason, ever since not streaming, it just doesn't want to do. Apparently, I'm losing 14% of the frames. We're not even doing anything. That's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, maximum trait points. So, you can actually spend points to have traits, and you can actually earn points by actually picking negative traits. And this is just to limit how much you can actually do with that. So if you want to get more negative and more positive traits, then you need to bump this up a little bit. If you want less, then you can turn it down. Simple as that. Skill rust. This is always something that I've always never really liked. So skill rust basically means that for skills that have a high level, they will eventually go down levels if you don't keep practicing that particular skill. Now, in theory, it's pretty, you know, solid. At the end of the day, if you're, for example, if you're playing a guitar and you've been playing it for years and years, then all of a sudden you stop, you don't play for a year, then you're going to lose some of that skill. Simple as that. It's a good idea in theory, but in gameplay, it's not brilliant, especially with the way the crafting now works with the caps. So yeah, I'll tend to turn this off, but if you really want it on, I suggest at least capping it at levels so it doesn't go stupidly low if you can't keep up with the skill. But yeah, so that's fine. I always take it off anyway. Even playing it for bloody two years and a bit, and I still prefer it off. Okay, world defaults, important things, right? Surrounded start. So this will determine whether you start off with nothing around you, or whether you start off with zombies around you. Needless to say, if you start off with enemies around you, it's going to be very difficult, especially for characters that require a little bit of preparation before they go out into the world. For example, trying to craft a weapon and stuff like that. This is going to make that very nearly impossible to do, especially if you have a high spawn rate scaling factor, which we'll talk about a bit later. So yeah, size of cities, you might want to keep this to about 4. The main reason for that is if you go too high, then what might happen is that your evac shelter will actually spawn right next to cities. While it sounds good in theory, when it actually comes down to it, you can very easily get swarmed by zombies. So be careful about that. If you set it too low, then you'll have to explore a hell of a lot more for the stuff that you need. So trying to find the perfect balance is, you know, is the thing here. 4 is definitely a decent balance. You know, sometimes you'll get really small towns, little cul-de-sacs, but then you'll get sometimes big, massive, fuck off megatropolis. So, you know, it's pretty cool. Classic zombies. If this is your first time playing, then I would highly suggest sticking this on. What this will do, this will get rid of most of the sci-fi shit that's in the game. A lot of people don't like it. I didn't like it. I'm used to it now, but again, I'm one of those people that weren't really too fussed with the sci-fi stuff. I was more into the zombie survival kind of bit. So this will actually take up most of the survival stuff off and actually disable certain buildings. It also makes the zombies a lot more classic, so you've only got normal zombies. Maybe you got the flavour ones like the cop zombie and stuff like that, but you ain't got none of the shocker zombies or, you know, some of the more supernatural ones. So yeah, that's actually a really nice one to start off with if it's your first time. Just bear in mind now, the wildlife is dynamically spawned whether you play static or dynamic spawns, so just bear that in mind. The wildlife can still kill you pretty easily. Okay, default region type, doesn't matter, it's not actually implemented. It was implemented back in 0.9, but it must be due to the JSON or something that it was took out again, so you can't use it, so don't bother. Okay, delete world, this is pure preference. I prefer to play with delete world on because it gives me a unique experience every character I make. So obviously when your character dies, the world is then deleted. However, some people don't like to play like that. Some people like to try and keep the stuff that they got from other characters and their progress. So if your character dies and you got good gear, if you make a new character in the same world, you can actually try and find that character that died with all the good gear and grab it for yourself. So yeah, it's pretty cool if you like playing like that. I don't like to have a unique experience every single time and start from scratch. That's just me. That's just roguelikes in general. So yeah, initial season, nothing much to say here. You can choose what season you want to start off. If you're a first time player, don't start off in winter. Please don't start off in winter. You'll probably die to the cult of bloody frostbites and stuff very easily. Initial time, 8 o'clock. Again, not much to say here. You can pick what time you want to start. Looks like we keep losing the feed. I think what I might have to do, and I don't really want to, is I might have to actually restart the feed and change it a little bit. Shouldn't have to though. I don't understand why it's dropping frames. We're not even doing it on the fucking screen that much. Weird. Anyway, item spawn scaling factor, a big one this. So your survivability is usually based on the items that you have available to you. So obviously having a higher item spawn scale is going to help you in the early game and in the long run. But if you have it too high, then you can actually end up with mid-game status more or less straight away, even without skills, because the amount of items you got, you usually got a better chance of getting a good quality item. So keeping this around about 1 is a decentish idea. If it's your first time, maybe you do need some items to help you along, so maybe sticking it to 2. I wouldn't suggest anything higher than 3 though, because otherwise then it starts to get really stupid with the item scaling. And as item scaling to 10, you can basically practically live in the evac shelter that you start off with, because the basement is completely loaded with everything you need. It's absolutely hilarious. Mutations by radiation, again personal preference, I like to keep this on. Gives me an incentive to not get radiated if I don't want to mutate, or it gives me an incentive to get radiated if I want to mutate. Brilliant. Random NPCs. NPCs are a lot more stable than they used to be. Before, you used to get NPCs that like to give you active mini nukes. That is not a good thing, because what will happen is you will blow up and you will die. Simple as that. But yeah, they're a lot more stable these days, so it's definitely worthwhile keeping them. They're a double-edged sword because they can help you and they can kill you, or at least attempt to kill you. So, and they can give you quests as well, which can be quite rewarding. You can get skill increases, and you can also learn martial arts styles from them, which is really cool. But again, it's just random NPCs, so we'll keep that. We'll put that on. I don't even know why that one to begin with. Season length, 14 days each season, that's the default. If you want a more realistic approach, then obviously you want an average of 3 months, which is about 90 days, so you can stick it on 90. The max is actually 127, which is kind of hilarious. Spawn rate scanning factor, this is another big one. If you're a new player, you might want to turn this down, maybe to about 0.5. That will actually half the amount of zombies around and stuff like that. But obviously increasing that will definitely increase the difficulty in your survivability, so just bear that in mind. You can actually go up to 50. Wow. I think I've done that previously before and it was stupid. I couldn't even get it, the evac shelter. It was that stupid. Static NPCs, same as random NPCs, except this NPC you actually start the game with. This is how it used to be in the vanilla Cataclysm. So yeah, you can enable that if you want. I never enable the static one because I don't know. I never do. Static spawn, true or false. Back in, I think it was 0.3 when this was changed. It used to be dynamic spawning, and back in 0.3 it then reverted to static spawning, but you can actually choose between the two. Static spawning means that all the zombies that are generated, when they're killed, none will actually replace them. So if you clear out a complete city of zombies, then they won't come back. So that's pretty cool, but bear in mind the wildlife is still dynamically spawned, so you still have to contend with stuff like wolves and bears and other stuff like that. It can be a lot easier to do it on static spawn, because obviously you can actually secure areas like that. Dynamic spawn is a bit weird, you've got like a little bit of a leeway in time. I think it's around about 9:30 in the morning when enemies will dynamically spawn anywhere, which is really kind of cool and also kind of bad, depending on how you look at it. But you have got that free time where there's not really many zombies around to go and loot some of the big shops and stuff, so you've got a bit of time to prepare like that. But dynamic spawn is definitely a hell of a lot more harder than static spawn in that sense, because obviously as you gradually live longer, then bigger, badder, evil monsters will start spawning, so just bear that in mind. And Wonder Spawns, that's actually one of the newest additions to 0.8, the experimental versions. Now what this will actually do is this will, yeah, as you can see, it will emulate the zombie hordes. So if you make too much sound, then zombie hordes might start wandering in your general direction. It definitely incentivizes a silent playstyle, or a less, or a sneaky one, shall we say. And yeah, they'll actually wander around cities as well as zombie hordes do. Yeah, I bet that was a lot to take in, wasn't it? It probably was. Okie dokie then. So let's just save the changes. Okay, now let's actually start the game. That would be a really good idea, wouldn't it? So you can actually pick a custom character or a random character. So there is play now option. I wouldn't suggest doing that straight away. You want to pick what you're able to do, or just randomize a character. So we have a mod list. You can actually enable mods. Some of the mods are already built into the actual mainstream game, but if it's your first time, you might want to include slow zombies. This will actually slow down the zombies quite drastically. It'll give you time to get used to the basics and whatnot, and especially some of the combat basics. And it can be a bit complicated at times, so just bear that in mind. We're not going to activate any of those though. We're not going to put anything in. World gen, that's like previous, and then obviously you just confirm like so. Now the game is not really mouse driven. I think the SDL version might be somewhat mouse driven, but I'm using the console version, which means it's purely keyboard driven. So hey, here's my mouse. Bye bye mouse. Okay. So yeah, to move stuff around, to move between the actual, oh go away. To move between the actual tabs, you need to press the arrow keys, the shift comma and shift full stop. Now we don't want to turn to main menu. So that's easy for that. To actually increase certain stats and stuff, you need to go up and down with the arrows, and left and right to increase and decrease accordingly. Okay, so let's actually talk about the stats. So we've got 6 points. Now we can spend these in different areas. We can spend it in stats, traits, professions, skills, and not description, because description is not to do with that. So what you want to think about is, what does each stat actually do? So strength is quite an important stat. This will actually influence your base HP, your carrying weight, your melee damage, and it will also make you more resistant to diseases, poisons, makes actions which require brute force more effective. So having a high strength is usually a pretty good idea. It makes you more sturdy, it makes you be able to do more damage in melee if you're going to be a melee character. Archers need a decent amount of strength as well to be able to either actually pull the bow or to reload a crossbow, so you need a decent amount of strength to actually do that. So strength is pretty important in general. Dexterity is basically your finesse. Now this affects quite a lot of things. It affects your melee to hit bonus, your phone bonus. It actually does give you a range penalty, but as you increase it, it actually goes away. So at 12 it actually completely goes away. It doesn't get any higher though, unfortunately. So yeah, this was to alleviate the LLP, the ranged builds was. So yeah, that was, what was that done there? Was that done back in 0.5 or 0.6? I honestly can't remember. But it also influences a lot of other things like dodging. It doesn't tell you that directly, but it influences stuff like dodging. So having a decent amount of dexterity is a pretty good idea as well. So yeah, intelligence. This it affects a lot of things. It affects your read times with books books are useful. They can help you learn skills and learn crafting recipes and stuff like that. Skill rust. That only really affects you if you've got skill rust on. So the higher your intelligence, the less skill rust you will actually have. So bear that in mind. It's also useful in crafting, installing bionics and interacting with NPCs. So it affects all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't tend to actually use intelligence that much unless I'm revolving around a particular build. So yeah, it's still an important stat nonetheless. And perception is probably the least important of the stats. It does give you a range penalty if you have it low, and of course if you put it higher, it will eventually go away. Same thing as dexterity. But it's also used to detect traps and other things of interest. So yeah, you can see a lot, you can see further and stuff like that with higher perception. But it's not really. I don't know if that actually affects your hearing as well. It might do. Big might. Okay, so yeah, that's what the stats do. Now traits. I'm not going to go through each and every individual trait because there's just too many to go through. Way too many. But on the left hand side you've got all the positive traits. On the right hand side you've got all the negative traits. Any negative trait you take will actually give you points, and any positive trait you take will deduct points. So some of the more less affecting negative traits for you to take to actually gain points, stuff like weak stomach, so you're more likely to throw up from food poisoning, alcohol, etc, etc. If you don't have any NPCs on, then taking ugly and truth teller is basically 3 points for you. If you don't want to interact with NPCs at all, then it's still worthwhile taking these. It's an extra 3 points right there. Trigger happy, and if you don't want to use stuff like machine guns and assault rifles, this is actually a really nice one to take as well. It's an extra 2 points for basically nothing. So yeah, thin-skinned. If you don't intend to get damaged at all anyway, if you're playing like a sneaky character or a fairly strong character, then thin-skin's a fairly okayish one to take. It just increases the cutting damage slightly. I would strongly recommend not to take strong scent. That is one of the main ways that zombies can actually find you, is by the scent. So you definitely don't really want a strong scent. There's other things as well. Maybe let's just go off. The ones I normally take are actually ugly, weak stomach, ugly, truth teller, trigger happy. That gives me 6 straight there, right? Now the one I normally take is glass jaw. Now this will actually decrease the amount of HP your head has by 20%. It doesn't sound, it's not really that much of a big deal because it's only 20% lower. Now obviously if it was combined with something like fragile, which basically decreases all your HP on your body by 75%, then yeah, it's gonna have a bigger impact. But no, we'll stick with glassjaw. And since we don't have any skill rust, we can take forgetful for basically 3 extra points, and that's gonna give us the 12. So we now got 18 points to spend. So I will go through some of the more positive traits in a bit, but I want to go through the professions next. So this was newly added. I think it was around about 0.7 or 0.8. I can't remember exactly. Wow, we're really losing frames on this. What the hell? So yeah, some professions actually give you points. So for example, the failed cyborg, it looks like it's got some decent stuff. It looks like it's got a few items to start off with, but what it tells you at the bottom is that you've got a load of broken bionics, and that's actually going to affect you quite a bit. So yeah, another thing maybe as well, hitchhiker for example, you only start off with a housecoat and a towel and some boxer shorts, so you know you're not really prepared very well. So you do earn a point from that, which is kind of cool. You've also got a few interesting null pointers. Basically, you can take these for free. They don't give you points, and you don't get, and you know, they don't deduct points. That's really cool. There's quite a lot of useful ones. Backpacker's a decent one if you want encumbrance early on, which is very important to hoard stuff. Another nice one I like to take usually is ballroom dance. This gives you basically free dodging stats, which is really nice. The problem with the bow and dance though is that you don't really have much clothes to choose from, and it's very hard to actually try and substitute the clothes that you have got. Now of course there are some that do cost points, as you can see. For example, Tailor. This is one that I've been taking a hell of a lot of, because of the fact it gives quite a nice boost to tailoring, which can really help in the early game. But for first timers who are playing the game for the first time, you might want to try and pick a offensive profession, one that focuses on combat, so that you don't have to worry too much about it. Stuff like maybe a cop. A cop will focus on guns and stuff like that. Guns are usually not the best of ideas to go with in a zombie apocalypse, but they can be useful. So, you know, the M1911 will take down most things on its own, which is pretty cool. And you do start off with some nice skills in there. Maybe you want Survivalist. Now, Survivalist doesn't really have any combat skills really, but it does have a nice combat knife, which is a very good melee weapon. Maybe you might want to go. Maybe you want to do bionics. You know, we'll discuss that a bit later. But yeah, there's an awful lot of choice, and more keeps getting added in the experimental versions as time goes on. So I think what I'm going to do a what shall we do? That's a good question. What shall we actually go with? Maybe a mechanic. Oh, mechanic would be pretty cool. Or blacksmith. Fabrication 4. That's actually quite it's quite a nice quite a nice boost. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go with we'll go with cop. There we go. We'll go with cop. So we're gonna focus on mainly ranged damage. So there is one thing you need to be careful of, is if you try and make an all-rounder, you can kind of gimp yourself out by not being able to do enough damage to kill stuff, or being able to take much damage and, you know, whatnot. So you got to be careful about that. But, you know, it's a roguelike. You're gonna die. This is the thing. This is the thing that a lot of people don't get. You know, it's a roguelike. You are meant to die eventually. There's no end game to this. The end game is basically survival. Just try and survive as long as possible. So yeah, you will die, and don't be off put by it, because, you know, it happens. I mean, how many times have I died in this game? I have no idea. I've lost count after 300, 400. Lost count, and I still die on the first day, even though I've had so much experience now. I still die on the first bloody day sometimes. It's just the randomness in it that's really cool. Okay, let's talk about some of the positive traits that might help you out. One of the main ones that I really like to take now is weak scent. This will actually make zombies less attracted to try and find you, so that's really cool. As well as wildlife as well. A lot of wildlife do require scent, and one of the things that you might find useful as well is probably strung back. It does cost a few points, but increases your maximum weight carried. Not strung back, sorry. Pack mule increases the amount of volume you can carry, which is really cool, really useful for a starting character, especially if you can't find any encumbrance holding stuff. Let me see what else we can pick. So quick is a very important one. So quick gives you extra, basically, move points, which is really cool. Parkour expert allows you to clear obstacles at the same move speed as an open space, and we'll talk about that a bit later. I'm not gonna pick that, because I want to show some of the basics of the movement game a bit later, so I don't really want to show that. We'll take night vision. Night vision allows us to see more squares at night, which is really cool. And I think we'll probably take something like light step, which will make less noise. So this is going to give us a lot of points left over. So we're going to focus on a little bit of strength. We don't need too much strength as a ranged. We're going to put quite a bit in dex, a fair bit in perception, and maybe 1 or 2 in intelligence. Now, the one thing to remember is that stat points are very hard to actually acquire in game, unless you're going to try and mutate or use bionics, which is quite dangerous to actually do, especially for new characters. So points are definitely worthwhile being spent in stats if you can. But of course, traits are also pretty hard to get, especially ones that are specific, unless you try and mutate. Just bear that in mind. A nice one as well is fleet-footed, especially if you're ranged, because you'll run a lot quicker on sure footing, which is really cool. Maybe I might stick some in a few skills as well. Skills I don't really like to put points in, because skills can be learned quite easily, either via real life, actually learning them, or via books, which can be quite easy to find as well. So maybe we might just stick a few more in, maybe one more in perception, one more in the strength, and then we've got 1 point left over. I might stick that in 1 point, come on Feng. Outdoorsman, there we go, I'll stick it in there. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so that's it. So that's my character, all done. I'm not going to name it, I'm going to leave it to randomly generate. Welcome to the game. As you can see, it's a load of squiggles and stuff. That's ASCII for you. It's brilliant. Okay, so a few things that you might want to know first. So the overview map. So if you press M, you've got a nice big overview map. Now this will show you quite a lot of things. This will show you where you are. As you can see, you're here, I'm here, and it will show you some of the other things around the actual world. Now this grey area is stuff that's been undiscovered, and as you explore more, you will uncover this, which will be really useful. So as you can see, there's a few buildings over here. So as you can see, we've got a few houses here, we've got a hardware store, we've got a gardening supply building, we've got a few bars, a radio station, oh, there's a gun store there as well, that's nice, doctor's office, etc, etc. So there's actually quite a lot of different buildings in the game, and some buildings are definitely worthwhile checking out, some buildings are not so. So obviously the gun store is going to be worthwhile checking, since we are going to stick with ranged, so you know, it's definitely going to be worthwhile checking. Another one that might be worthwhile checking are the oh god, where they're gone? What am I after? The mechanic store, the hardware store, sorry. They'll have a few tools that we can use to try and maybe repair a vehicle, which we can then use to travel the world a lot easier, etc, etc. There's also some other things as well. As you can see, there's a crater over here. That might actually have radiation on it. I don't know if that's from whether it's from a nuke or from a bomb, or whether it's from a meteorite. It's not actually made very clear in game whether it's made by that. But you know, it's cool. We've got parking lot. Parking lots are usually worthwhile checking out as well, because they can sometimes have vehicles that are actually working. Sewage treatment, and we've also got a science lab, which are really cool to investigate. Very cool indeed. Okay, so this is where you start. You start in the evac shelter. You move around with the numpad. Obviously, depending where you press, depends where you go. Pressing 5 will actually wait a few turns, which is also cool. And as you can see, we've actually got stairs here. These are stairs. These lead down. So by pressing the down key there we go. Brilliant. So these are doors, and we've got lots of stuff down here. So to pick stuff up, you can press E, examine, which will examine, and then you press the direction you want to go. There we go. So you can pick up stuff either by going over it with the arrow keys and pressing left and right, well, right in this case, or by pressing the actual letter, though it's symbols, so A, and then pressing enter. So that's just giving me some cough syrup. So I use your inventory, and we have cough syrup. Yay. There's a few things we can actually do with that, but I'm not going to go through just yet. So we're going to check down here. This is the basements are usually a very good place to start, because they can usually give you nice things early on, like a rain hood. I thought that was a backpack then. Damn it. Okay, so we've got a rain hood. That's a piece of clothing. We've got books, shorts, etc, etc. Oh, what else have we got? We have ravioli, clean water. So I think we'll take those. We could do with those. So we've got a bit of food and drink. Okay. So there are a few steps to survival, right? There's a few things you need to bear in mind. You need to keep healthy by eating and drinking. Right. You also need to bear in mind that each body part, your head, your torso, your left arm, left leg, and right leg, also have health. And if these go down, if any of these go down to 0, you will die. That's the end game. For nada. That's it. No more. Whatever your character is. Okay. So just bear that in mind. Okay. So you want to keep these as healthy as possible. There are ways to heal up. You can use bandages, first aid. And you can also sleep. Sleeping naturally recovers your health over time as well, so that's really cool. Over here you will see your hunger and your thirst. You can't see it just yet because we're not actually hungry and thirsty. But if we were to say eat the ravioli, for example, so to consume items you shift E, and then you click the item that you want to, you don't click it, sorry, you actually press the button for the item you want to use. So L, for example, in this case for the tin of ravioli, and it says you will not be able to finish it all, but we're going to consume it anyway. So as you can see, we're now full, and we wasn't able to finish it all, so we actually did waste some, which is a bit of a pooey. But yeah, at least we're full now, so that's good. That's a good thing. Okie dokie. So it actually gave me an empty tin can as well. And I'm actually going to just drop this. So to drop stuff, you can either press D, which will drop on the spot where you are, or if you press Shift D, you can choose a direction to drop it at. So you can multi-drop, so you can drop as much as you want. So for example, we can drop that. If you want to drop a certain number of stuff, so for example, if I don't want to be carrying 50 ACP rounds, then what you do is you type in the number first. So for example, I'm going to type 25. And then either, in this case, I or right, and you will actually drop that amount. So that's pretty cool. And there we go. So we've actually dropped several items full, and then obviously to examine to pick them up again if we want them. So obviously I'm going to pick those back up. So at the moment we've got fists. We've got nothing in our hands. So we want to actually equip something in our hands. So if we press W, we can then weld an item. So obviously it seems like a good idea to weld the M1911. Now it's got no bullets in it, so we need to reload it. So what we do then is we press R to reload it. There we go. Now obviously if you don't have the right caliber bullets for the gun, then it won't reload. Simple as that. Okay. Now just bear in mind that most actions take movement. There is actually a movement cost involved in doing actions. So as you can see, I'm moving, and you see these two numbers here. This first one is your speed you're actually moving at. No, it's not. That's your actually speed. That's how much it costs for you to actually like move, right? Okay. No, it doesn't. What the fuck am I on about? Do you know what? Hang on. Let me just have me coffee. I need a drink. Well done, thing. Let's confuse everyone first. Yeah. Okay. So this is the base, this is the base amount of speed that you actually have, right? And this is how much it costs you to actually move. So as you can see, going up, down, left and right costs 100 move points. However, if we were to go diagonal, it would actually cost 141 movement points. Now, it's a little bit hard to gauge this, but it actually takes time. Now I can't actually say exactly how much time because we don't have a watch or anything. We only know roughly that it's morning. That's it. We don't know an exact time. So yeah, and there's going to be other things as well. So moving over obstacles will also take time. So as you can see, we're moving over a bench, and that's actually taking 125 movement points. So yeah, you need to bear that in mind. So moving over obstacles does take a lot more time than walking over solid surface. Now some actions will also take time as well, but let me just show you actually. So let's unload my my bullets out, my gun, right? So to unload, it's capital U to unload whatever in your hand. So there we go. That actually took 116 movement points. Now to reload it, I'm going to press R, and that took 19 movement points because it's much more quicker to reload a gun than it is to unload it, which is really weird. You'd thought it'd be the way around, but whatever. So yeah, that's really cool. I hope you got a little bit better understanding how the movement works. So that's great. Now you might notice we're actually making a bit of sound moving here. We're making 2 sound. Now we have actually got light step, so we're actually making a lot less sound than we normally would. I think walking makes a sound of 6. Now that's important because if you make too much sound, then enemies will be attracted to you. and you know, you don't want that to happen. Okay, so let's take a look outside. There we go. To open doors, you just literally walk into them. Some are locked, so you might need to try and either break them down or try them open with a crowbar, or try and unlock them with a lockpick, which we'll go through in a bit. So here we go, we're out in the open, and if you press X, you can actually view the world around you like this. So that's actually really cool. You can see what's in front of you and wherever is in your basically visual range. So that's really cool. Obviously the black bit is where your vision is obscured because of walls and shit like that. So just bear that in mind. Now over here we've got a strawberry down here by the look of it. Yeah, you've actually got a strawberry, and it actually tells you the movement costs of stuff as well. So as you can see, a shrub has a movement cost of 400 if you want to try and get over it. So just bear that in mind. So we're going to go over to the strawberry and we're going to pick it. And we need to, well, we don't actually need to eat it just yet, but we picked some strawberries, and that's basically one of the basic things to remember. You can basically get food from the wild. You can get it from strawberries, apples, berries, basically fruit, stuff like that. You can also hunt down animals. As you can see, we've actually got a squirrel to the east. So the squirrel is looked at R. So if we have a quick look over here, we can see that there's a squirrel over there. Now if we could find a way to kill it, we could butcher it up and try and get the meat of it and cook it. But we can't really do that just yet. We're not equipped to do that yet. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to start by making a few lockpicks. So what we need to do first is we need to grab a rock. So there's a rock over here. So let's grab that. There we go. And we'll go back. Yeah, we'll go over the bluebell and slow us down a bit. There we go. Now we can close the door because we don't want a wildlife to walk in here. So to close the door, we press C and then direction. And now what we want to do is we want to wield a rock that we've just picked up. So you see, weapons actually take damage if you use them in their unconventional method. So if I was to, I'm going to try and smash these lockers in, you see. So if I was to do that with M1911, it might actually break the M1911. So I don't want that to happen. So we're going to use a rock instead, something that's dispensable, and we'll still be able to break down the lockers. So to smash stuff, which is very useful for getting components for crafting, we press S and then direction. So as you can see, we hear a clang there. That's actually made noise. It's made 18 noise, so we need to be careful just in case any enemies are around. But we're going to keep making that until we've actually got some components. So there we go. Now if we examine it, we can see that breaking down that locker has given us a few scrap metal, some chunks of steel, and a pipe. So that's cool. Okay, so crafting. Crafting is a really big part of the game now. It didn't actually used to be. It used to be kind of a helping hand, you know, but it is quite essential these days to craft. So to craft, you need to press the and button. So that's Shift and 7. And you've actually got quite a big list. Now, when you first start, you won't have access to all the recipes. You have to get better at certain skills, or you have to learn from books to be able to get more recipes. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to make some lockpicks. So we're going to go to other, which again you use the shift comma shift full stop to go over the tabs, and then left and right to go over the secondary tabs, as you can see. So if we go to tools, we can see we can make an improvised pick lock. So as you can see, what we need for this is we need fabrication. Difficulty is 0, so we can do this at any fabrication level. Our skill level involved in it, and time to complete, which is important as well, because some recipes require a hell of a lot more time than this. So 1 minute is pretty quick. It requires one tool with hammering quality of 1 or more. So our rock, I'm going to show you this, our rock has actually got an hammering quality of 1. So we've actually got kind of a hammer there. So there we go, we can do that. And oops. And it also requires scrap metal, where we've just broke down the locker for some scrap metal. So now we can make this. Now what this will do, this will give us a pick lock that we will be able to try and pick lock doors, which will be useful later on. Okay. Now, what you want to try and do is you want to try and build up your skills whenever you can, really. So what we can do is we can actually build up our fabrication skill pretty easily. So if you press the at key or shift apostrophe, you can see an overview of your stats. So up and down to go through each individual stat. Tab will go over the different sections. So as you can see, tab is going over the stats, the encumbrance, skills and traits, and I'll talk about all that in a bit, right? This speed one here, which I can't tab to, will actually show you what your current speed is. Now, stuff that will affect your speed, your current speed, will be stuff like pain. If you're in pain, it will affect your speed quite drastically, depending on how much pain you're in. If you're hungry, if you're hot, if you're cold, if you're thirsty, all this kind of stuff will affect your speed. And that's actually where a lot of new players actually kind of mainly die, because they don't realise that they're in so much pain that their speed is basically non-existent. So just bear that in mind. And you could also see stuff like encumbrance and wolf, which I'll go through in a bit. Skills, as you can see, we started off with a decent amount of handguns and marksmanship. So yeah, we've naturally got some good skills in there. Technically, the higher the combat skills, the more effective they are. So in this case, because handguns requires both handguns and marksmanship, it does mean I've got a decent chance of actually hitting my target, and I've also got a decent chance of actually doing damage as well as possible critical hits. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So fabrication, we need this to do a lot of crafting recipes. So as you can see, it's at 20% at the moment because I've already crafted a pick lock. So if I was to craft another one, so to craft, you can actually quick craft as well. So if you crafted something recently, if you press the what key is that actually? What key is that? It's like the underscore key. Oh, hang on. I forgot what, I can't remember the fucking name of the key. I'm a dumbass. If we just very quickly go to the commands. Okay, that's the nothing at all. Key binding's really nice. There it is. Recraft last recipe. That's the key for it. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I honestly can't remember the fucking name of that key. I'm a dumbass. But yeah. So if you use that, you can recraft the last recipe, which is really nice. And I might as well go through this as well while I'm at it. So key bindings, you can actually rebind most keys. So that's really cool if you don't know where keys are. So you do that by, if you want to remove a key, for example, it's pointless me having zoom in and zoom out on this because it's not the SDL version. I'll press minus, and then I'll press S, and then we'll clear the key for that. We don't need it. Right, and then if you want to add a key, it's exactly the same. You press plus, and then you press the button. So I'm just going to cancel that and save the changes. That's fine. Okay, so as you can see now, we're now at 39% fabrication. Okay, so you might think, well, hang on, the pick lock, the first pick lock was 20%. How come this one's only 39%? Okay, so there's an actual mechanic in the game called focus. So as you can see, we've got a focus of 98. Now, what this determines is how well you learn stuff in real life and in books. So if you have generally an average is 100 focus. So if you got 100 focus, you're fairly focused, which means that you will be able to learn stuff fairly quickly. However, as you actually use up this kind of resource, you do learn things slower. So it's kind of to stop people from trying to massively grind, kind of thing. Although we still end up doing it anyway. But yeah, it's at the point. It's trying to, I suppose, emulate the fact that our brain can only take so much before it goes, oh fuck that, you know. So yeah. You can actually increase this by a number of ways. You can increase it by having a high morale, which we'll go through in a bit, and also a high some drugs as well can actually get you to focus a bit more. So yeah, that's fine. Morale is pretty important. So at the moment you normally have a base morale of 0, and your focus gain per minute, that's in-game minutes by the way, is 0.02, so it's not a lot. But if you have a high morale, you actually boost your focus gain. So having high morale while you're learning stuff is a really nice way of actually getting your skills up. But if you have a low morale, then you actually have the opposite effect. And if your morale is low enough, you will actually start losing focus. And that's a bad thing, because then you aren't actually learning skills that well at all. So you have to bear that in mind. How do you actually increase and decrease your morale? There's a number of ways. Stuff, for example, to increase it could be drinking some beer, for example. That will actually increase your morale a little bit. Smoking weed and stuff like that will actually increase your morale a bit as well. But there is stuff that might negatively affect it, like eating raw meat, for example. Don't eat raw meat, don't do it. But if you feel inclined to, if you eat raw meat, you'll probably get a morale decrease. So stuff like killing zombie children as well. That was a slight spoiler there, but whatever. Yeah, killing zombie children as well will actually give you a negative morale unless you've got a certain trait to alleviate that. So yeah, so that's how the morale works and the focus. So we're going to carry on crafting this until we get 1 in fabrication, which will be soon. We're actually missing some scrap metal now, so what I need to do is I need to smash open some more lockers. And I've also accidentally smashed up a bench, but that's fine, we can do that as well, that's no biggie. And it only takes 63 to do that, so that's fine. Okay, let me carry on. So on the console to the right, you can see now that our skill in fabrication has increased to 1. So you feel that fabrication tasks this level are becoming trivial. So if I was to keep making more improvised pit locks, then what would happen is you wouldn't actually advance in that skill anymore, because it requires a skill of 0 and we've already got a skill of 1 in it. So that was actually quite a recent change. You used to be able to, you keep making them and making them and making them and making them. One of the major things that people used to do was a fishing hook, because you only needed 1 nail and a hammering tool, and you could keep crafting it, and you could actually deconstruct it as well back into its nail. So people would just keep doing that until they got a fabrication of what the hell they wanted. Since it only took 1 minute as well, it was pretty quick to do, so you know. But as you might have noticed, we've actually opened up a few more crafting recipes, because we've actually got our fabrication now to 1. It does affect it quite a bit. Okay, so what we need to now think about is what we're going to do. We've actually got that rain. I actually want to drop some of this stuff. I don't need all this stuff, so I'll actually show you the advanced inventory system. So as you can see, we've been manually doing dropping and picking up and stuff, but there's actually an advanced and possibly quick way of doing it for items that you have a lot of. So if you press the backslash button, yeah, I remember the name of it this time, the backslash button, you actually get this menu pop up. So this is how it works, right? You pick the square that you want to put stuff in. So for example, I want to put stuff, let me have a look, I want to put the rain hood in where the tin can is, right? So you press 9 and then you press tab, and that will go over to your inventory. Now you can change what this square actually does. So any of the squares at the sides and stuff like that, if you want your inventory, you press I. Any dragged vehicle like a trolley, you press D, although we don't actually have one yet because we haven't got a trolley or anything. And as you can see, it's actually kind of a mess. It's not really clearly labelled here. So what I normally do is press sort, which is S, and then by category. So now it's nice and categorized, and we need to do it with both. There we go. So as you can see, we've got nice categories now. So I'm going to stick my rain hood in there. You just need to press enter. We don't need to do anything else. And my nails, I don't really need nails. And I think that'll do. So that's brilliant. Okie dokie. So it's really nice, especially when you've got a trolley. It makes life a hell of a lot easier using that system. Okay, we are actually, I don't know how long these streams been on for. It's probably been on for about an hour already. We haven't even got at the fucking evac shelter yet. But there's a lot to take in, and I'm hoping you are taking in what I'm talking about. I know it can be a bit tedious, and you know it is quite lengthy, but it's crucial to understand how the game works. So yeah. Okay, so I'm actually going to take a little bit of a break here. So I'm going to have a bit of 5-minute break just to finish my coffee off. That's gone absolutely fucking freezing and whatnot. And I'll be back to streaming very shortly, and then we'll carry on from where we left off. So, okay guys, I'll see you very shortly.